We follow the sound as it fades. The sound strikes our attention out here, and as it fades, we go into a quieter place in our hearts and souls. This is the place where we find the altar of God. This is where we meet the Holy Spirit. Onto this altar, Father, Mother, God, we place all thoughts, opinions, judgments, actions that are unlike your holiness. We know these to be temporary, moments of insanity sometimes. We place them all on the altar so that your light can shine upon them and disperse them, all the darkness of them, shined away into the nothingness they are. And in this place and at this level of consciousness, we call upon your holy presence that shines from the heavens down into our heart, and then we ask that it shine into every aspect of our lives, every cell and organism of the universe and throughout our body, our being. We ask that you take us up into the highest level of consciousness today. Let us learn the most, heal the most, feel the most, all that is possible when standing in your light, in your presence. And we give thanks in advance that you have brought us together, two or more in one intention, to be the Christ you've created us to be. And so it is.
Please join me in reading our mission statement, which you can find on the front of this white card. And together we say, the Global Center for Christ Consciousness is a spiritual center for students and masters on the spiritual path. We are dedicated to awakening the inner Christ and to creating a world of love, peace, joy, and abundance. And now for our sacred reading of the day.
From A Course in Miracles. Child of light, you know not that the light is within you. There is a light that the world cannot give, yet you can give it as it was given to you, finding it through its witnesses and having given light to them. In gratitude and holy thanks they will return it, and as love always leads love, each one you see in light brings your light closer to your awareness, shining forth to call you from the world and to follow it home. And so it is.
All right. How are you all feeling today? Our opening song for the people online, we played Salisbury Hill by Peter Gabriel. Great tune. It's easy to forget how great the lyrics are. And it's about a personal experience he had when he was in the band Genesis, and he was thinking about, leaving the band and so on. People were saying he was just being too cosmic. I don't know if you can be too cosmic, But at the time, critics and people like that, they were on his case and just like, just knock it off, all this spiritual stuff. But he was bursting inside, and that's why, I was standing, on this hill, and I could hear, I saw an eagle flew out of the night, and he's describing all these cosmic synchronicities. But he's saying, in a sense, I'm summarizing, but he's saying, in a sense, something's calling me to a new life, and the people around me don't get me. They even say, and he says in the song, they think I'm crazy. They think I'm insane. Who do you think you are, turning water into wine? But what a great thing, because in his mind, yes, we can do things like this. We can awaken. We can help each other. Oh, no. And the world wants us not to awaken because it ceases to exist when the children that live on it, in a parasitic, by the way, relationship with the earth, they're already dead. So if you awaken, the earth gets to come to life the way it was meant to, which is called Eden. We can be living in Eden, but instead we live in this very strange world. But it's not because the world is the problem. It's the minds of the people living on the planet. I forgot to ask you, what do you want me to talk about today? Yeah, it's a good start. What do you want me to talk about today?
Going home.
Oh, that's interesting.
Sitting in the discomfort of holding boundaries.
Okay. Okay. Okay, hold on. What was the one back there? Okay, yes, one more. Hold on one sec. What? Spirits? Spirited girl. Is that it? We're good. Okay. You know, we deal with this world. I mean, grief and discomfort of setting boundaries. It's a fallen world, and I know some people don't like the terminology. You'd like to think everything's, just blissful. But look at the world. It isn't blissful. But this is not the world God created. The one we're seeing isn't the one. That's a linear head, by the way. When you read the Bible and you think God created the heavens and the earth, it's first of all, who's the God that they're talking about? In the Bible, there's variations of God. One minute it's called Lord, the next minute Yahweh, the next minute Elohim. Elohim means several gods. So there's the ultimate God, and then there are creator gods, the ones that races prayed to and had communication with. That's just the way it is. It's true that there are creator beings, creator gods. And they are ultimately channeling creative power of God. But they're not always translating it exactly as God would have. Because God is only love. And when we read in the Bible, a creator God says, I'm a jealous God, that's actually not the ultimate God speaking. That's a creator God. Because everything in creation has personality and ego. It's not always showing as much, and it might even be a more powerful being than the average human being for now. But love is this sending frequency of perfection and wholeness, and it can't have bad days. So we're human beings and we can have bad days. And so things that are as simple as the discomfort, you're talking about setting boundaries, that should be so natural. Should be so natural. We actually have to ask about, how do I deal with my family if I start setting boundaries more? What do you mean, how should you deal with them? Why are they in the conversation? Because if you're worried about what they think, then you're actually not setting boundaries. Setting boundaries, you go here to find out what you need to do. You don't go there. That makes no sense. I think I'm going to start a website where I ask people what my boundaries should be. That makes no sense. That's not boundaries at all. Boundaries are established between you and God here first. Then you're plugged in enough to say, and what feels organically right to this and not takes me out here, right? That's all. And you don't have to blame others because it's easy to go, Michael, could you give me some advice on setting boundaries with jerks? Well, that wasn't the goal, to just establish that you're good and everybody's bad. It's about you just setting the boundaries, and that doesn't work for me. This works for me. See, I don't have to talk about what they want or whether I like them or don't like them. This is all that matters. See? Me and God have this relationship, and it's based on, let's call it peace. Or it could be love and self-worth, so I have that. Now, if a child in the audience or in your life were to be in a certain circumstance, should you allow that child to be in certain circles of people? I can think of several groups. I would say no, right? Common sense. That's how you should treat yourself. Do I feel comfortable being in a certain group? You in your head could say, well, I'm kind of used to it. See, coming from a damaged place, you can actually justify some of the crazy relationships you've chosen. Well, given the last one, this wasn't so bad. What a wonderful way. That should be a Valentine card. Listen, I don't know if this is going to work out, but you are leaps and bounds better than the last one. If I was the partner that received that card, I'd be gone. That's not the attitude. The attitude is here. If I have value, even as much as a child, would I suggest this child, if they were 16 or 18, date that kind of person? No offense, okay, because I know some of you are in some twisted situations. But would I recommend this to a child I loved at 16 or 18? No. Then why do we have to have any further conversation? See, but that's hard for people that are broken and used to bargaining sanity away, bargaining their bodies away, and bargaining, everything else, self-worth and so on. If we get back to organically loving ourselves, it's amazing how simple that can be. Does this resonate? I'm going to a party tonight. Is that the kind of atmosphere that I would bring a child to that place, and so on? It's not that it works 100% of the time, but 90-something% of the time. The only reason it doesn't work 100 is sometimes the circumstances don't fit what you would recommend to a child. But still, would you recommend this to your child or a growing child of yours? It's just a simple thing. You can watch any other videos to kind of elaborate on that topic, but the idea, because one of you asked about that word of awakening, our awakening is really coming to a restoration of who I am. It's not always about, and then one more book or one more meditation or one more thing, one more holy site I'm going to go and visit. Those things are great. But if you don't come back from that sacred site and apply a healthier self-worth, it's kind of worthless. And I've always been a little particular about these kinds of things. I go to sacred sites, and if I go to sacred sites and I bring a group of people and some of them are bickering, well, this is human stuff. I mean, it's human stuff. But I kind of get funny about that. Like, if I see people bickering, I'm like, what was the point of going around the world to a sacred site so you could argue? You could have done that at home and saved a few grand. I'm like, if we're going to come here, can you set aside that stuff even for a day? Come on, try. So when I saw that people, they like the stimulus aspects of things, but the application, the day-to-day application wasn't always there. Now, should we judge them? And no, we don't want to be hyper particular to where we just start scrutinizing everything to death. But there's a lot of things that people don't understand. And like, for example, the concept of judgment. Some of you are asking words like returning to our innocence was one of them. Our innocence is the thing that's made in the image of God. So if I use the chakras as an example, God is in the upper 3 chakras. My humanness is in the lower 3 chakras. My heart is the one that chooses which one to listen to. It's kind of simple that way. That's it. Now, my heart is the one that listens. And if you're in Sedona especially, everybody goes, oh, the heart, oh, oh, my heart chakra. It's all just beautiful. An actor once said, everybody tells me to follow my heart, but if your heart's been abused, it's a terrible guide. Your heart can be damaged. Your heart can be betrayed. Why? Because look, because it isn't God, the Trinity of God. And it isn't just the human. It's something that's in between, known as your soul. This is your spiritual self. Spirit. This is human. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Do you follow? There's duality between these, seemingly. In God, there's no duality. It's just God. But we feel duality because we're sitting here torn between these two. I know who I should and shouldn't date. I know it, but they're so cute. Who's speaking? That isn't God. This love. Yeah, but they're so cute. Love, but they're so cute. The heart's like, don't watch. I'm going out for a while. You might not want to, you probably have so much to do. You're so busy. Don't, I'll get back to you tomorrow morning, God, humans, man. Anyway. And here's my soul. This is my spirit. This is my soul, my humanness. The humanness has clearly been hijacked by the ego. It's not a great guide. Your humanness is the one that tells you all the time that you're flawed and you need something. Your humanness is just constantly crying, whining, because if you identify with your humanness, you can't simultaneously know how to identify that you are not human at all. You're a spirit being. And some people will say, well, can't you do both? Not easy. But you can't do both. What you can do is know one and let it shine down into the other. That's the only way you can know both, experience both harmoniously. Know that you are part of God and that you are very holy. And ask for that holiness to be reflected in your heart, mind, emotions, and body. Is that easy? Not at all. And when you slip, forgive yourself, bounce back, and let's try again tomorrow. And it comes down to those practical day-to-day things like caring for yourself. People do this, I'm down here on earth. I just wish I knew what God wanted me to do, which is right here. It's not there. It's right here. I wish God, the I am in me, would just tell me what I really need to be doing. And it does, but the reason you're not sure is because we're no longer used to listening to it. The voice that says just love. Love, 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 love. Yeah, but. And we add this dualistic thing. Yes, I know you tell me love God, and you want me to love everyone, but you know what? You don't know what it's like. I just lost a job. And then God's like, isn't that the job? We have records, the Akashic records. We have 86 accounts just this year of you not liking your job. And yet you're telling us today, if only I would have known what job. We told you. Remember when you were driving to work banging your head on the steering wheel? I hate this job. We kind of said, why don't you become a florist? And you were like, no, I can't. It doesn't make enough money. My parents wouldn't appreciate it. And you make all your reasons to not follow bliss. You're dating people. You're doing things that aren't just aligned with love. Now, I'm not trying to be ultra philosophical here because I know it's easy to hear a talk and, somebody, or read a book, or that it's all about love. I know. And then in the third dimensional world, we lose loved ones. And where's the love now? I don't understand it. And here's what happens. My humanness is saying, if love does exist, I don't feel it right now. And why? Because I lost someone. Where's love now? I want to snap a finger and bring them back. But see, my humanness is making me gauge by my eyes. If the person's not in the room, and I've lost them and they're not in the room, how can I feel love? But you already fell prey to something. You thought that you had to see them in the room to experience the person, which is a lie. You follow so far? They're not here and not here. That's an illusion of the eyes. You're using your senses to determine if the person's in the room. And if they're not, you're not happy. Total lack consciousness. It's better to say, again, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. I want to still feel joy, but they're gone. They're not gone. You can't see them. So my prayer is to give up my veils that keep me from seeing the way God sees. The person's right here with me. They're ringing your doorbell, and you go, nobody's at the door. I wonder why that doorbell keeps ringing. It's kind of funny. It's kind of cool in a way, because you start to realize they're not gone, but you're just in a mood. You're in the mood to be depressed that they're gone. Own that that's the mood you're in. Don't condemn it to be a fact. Don't say, well, if they're gone, I'm not allowed to feel joy. They're feeling joy. How dare they? I'm on earth suffering that they died, and they're partying on the other side. They're totally encouraging you. Do you want to join the party? No. Because you left me. Who wouldn't? With that kind of attitude, Spirit's asking you to party, come to life. And the truth is, if you saw them and knew, they're like, I'm okay. And you won't allow that, that's your problem. So do you want to borrow their wings and soar with them into happiness? Or are you going to try to chain them to this planet and say, I refuse to let you be happy if I'm suffering? They're choosing to not suffer. And what would you like to do? It's a choice. So in this place, we have to choose heaven and earth, spirit, love, God. And it's not impractical. It's calling it in. And it takes a practice of doing this every day. One of the strangest things we do is the concept of judgment and forgiveness and so on. It's an interesting thing to me because human beings actually think, okay, so the initial stages of forgiveness are forgiving people, they died. Forgive them, they hurt you. Forgive them, they left you. Forgive people all the different hurts of what they've done or didn't do for you. We have a load of people that we think we have to practice forgiveness, and you do. But there's more to it. Deep down inside, we were once part of God, we know that. Deep down inside, we know that we started to separate and went into a place called the Garden of Eden. And in the Garden of Eden, we chose to eat from either a tree of happiness and love and joy or one of condemnation, guilt, and shame. And we chose to eat from, and it's our responsibility, we chose to eat from a tree that made us solidify that we're going to fall even further. Does that make sense? One with God, drifting off to a place where we're not sure, and then we bit the apple, as it were, and we fell into dense bodies. We fell into being mere mortals that die, get sick and die. How strange. We're this. We became this. How did that happen? By doubting ourselves, by forgetting that this is who we are. Note the hand movement, right? That this God is who we are, even in the Garden of Eden. We're made in God's image. We can still pull this off. We can still forgive ourselves and return to the complete oneness. But instead, we chose to, and it's a metaphor, to bite that apple. We chose to judge ourselves as being even remotely separated from all that is. But how do you separate from all that is? It's all that is, but you're separate from it. How do you can't, you're cheating. It's all that is. Then how did you separate? You can only make believe that you separated. Remember, the Bible tells us Adam was put into a sleep, but it never said he woke up. Adam fell into a sleep and made believe that he was separated. And when he did, he judged himself for what? For the dream he was having. But it's just a dream. So how is God going to deal with us on Judgment Day? Well, the same way a decent parent would. You would wake the child, and when the child wakes up and said, I had a nightmare, you don't smack the child. You say, and it was just a dream. Would you like some French toast? I mean, that's what's going to happen in the Judgment Day. It's what's going to happen. It's a happy closure to all this. It really is. But our fear of what could happen still has us under its control. So here's the really strange part to it. And I don't think this is known very commonly, and it takes a lot of maturity, spiritual and psychological maturity to understand this. So whatever level you're at, just bear with me for a second. We actually believe we separated from God, and then we judged ourselves and came to earth to pay the price with rules, karma, and consequences, okay? So here in this place, we were starting to believe we could, or we might not be separated. We weren't sure. We were doubting. And then we judged ourselves. That's the tree of judgment. We know that in the Garden of Eden, the tree of judgment. We bit from that. And Adam and Eve, us, we fell to human bodies. All right, now on that note, deep inside, before there's any other people in the story, your story of life, your lifetimes, or anybody in the Bible, before there's anybody else, there's something happening. When we think we separated from God, if God is love and all there is, God is just this magnificence, and we separated from God, let's just accept we might have judged ourselves a little for separating. Would that be at least remotely agreeable? You're going to kind of judge yourself. Hey, self, yeah. A minute ago we were in heaven. I know. Don't remind me. Where are we now? Dating. Dating. One with all, and now we're in a selective process. Survival of the fittest. We're dating. And, and nobody wants me. And look, now I'm mad because, when I was younger, somebody might have wanted me. But no, I had to marry that person and spend 30 years with them, to where I aged, and now this fruit fallen from the tree, man. Nobody wants me. You have all this stuff. Now, this is all going on deep in the mind. I don't know where these things come from, okay? We have all this going on in the mind, but understand, we judged ourselves for separating, okay? Here's what gets really weird. Deep inside, you goof. What were you thinking? Shh. No. I feel really bad about it as it is. What were you thinking? Just separate from God. Shh. And so we try to just pretend we don't know it, but you do know it. You know that you seemingly separated, and you know that you're not feeling very happy with yourself. All right, now, this is the weird part. Because I feel guilty and ashamed, all thoughts, all things have karmic circumstances or karmic results. Agreed? Cause has an effect. Agreed? If I think I'm separated, I am probably going to be judged for that, which I know I'm judged for because I just did it. And if there's judgment against it, there needs to be consequences. Is that okay? Consequence. I mean, if I'm guilty, there's probably going to be some punishment. And here's what we do. I don't know who's going to be the one to bring the karmic results. This is what we do. So technically, I suspect any of you could be them. This is what we do. I'm not kidding. We judge ourselves for being separated. We know such a thought deserves retribution, but we don't know who it's going to be to bring it. So now we live constantly in fear and suspicion of everyone. When somebody shows up with flowers and wants to date you, you just kind of go, hi, I'm going to temporarily let you off the hook because you're making me feel good about myself. They're still a suspect. They're still a suspect. As soon as they don't bring flowers one year on Valentine's Day, there's the real you. I get it. See, and I know it's hard to share this, and you don't hear this from me or people very often, but this is the truth behind judgment, how it really works. But I don't say it because it'll just depress everybody. But listen, you judged yourself before any executioner showed up in your life. You already determined you're separate and therefore deserving of whatever happens to you. What you want to pretend you don't know is that you know this, and you're suspecting any one of these people could be the one. So we're living in constant fear, but also tension, because it takes a lot of energy to keep an eye on everyone. It takes a lot of energy to walk around constantly suspicious, always, can I see your passport, please? I want to, and psychically tuning in. Oh, I knew it. And somebody just looks in your direction, sneezes in your, see, and so so forgiveness means I'm retiring you all from that role. It'll start with jerk face. I'm going to forgive you for being the jerk face in my life. I could have been a wonderful person had you not entered my life. That's okay. Start with that. But do you understand that if you already thought you're separate and judged yourself, you already determined you're deserving punishment? Technically, the worst of the executioners were hired by you. I'm not saying you consciously said, I'm looking for an executioner. I'm not saying that. But subconsciously, the door was left open for it. Okay? The door was left open for it. Because you had already determined you are flawed and deserving of punishment. I'm not telling you you're conscious of this. I'm not even telling you you're certainly not conscious of what kind of punishment and who's it going to be. There's a frequency. Hello, everyone. Oh, good morning. Good morning, world. Good to see you all. My name is Michael. I'm flawed. I left God. I know that doesn't go well. I'm probably deserving of punishment. Oh, good to see you all. And unconscious of that. Someone then pushes and pulls on you and hurts you and whatever. The world is a mirror of how you're doing inside. You can start with forgiving each jerk in your history, And you know what? I'm not pretending that the people aren't thoughtless and selfish, because they're also separate. So here's what they're doing. I'm going to get you before you get me. All the victimizers and hurtful people, the rapists and all the things that go on this planet, they're out hurting people because they're so angry that they messed up and left God. If they were still one with God, I swear to you, they wouldn't be able to harm you. They wouldn't choose to. They're hurting, and so are the opposites. So everybody ends up in this strange codependence. You know, just like, oh my God, like here we are just like looking around going, oh my God, really? I have to strike before they get me? What a weird way to live. The bad news is if you're so conscientious, I refuse to strike first. You're going to have so many people striking at you first that you start to become depressed because you get tired of being struck so many times. See, now you're not a victimizer. Thank God you're not like them. But you're a victim, which is equally messed up. I know it seems like a victim is more innocent than the victimizer. Both are equally believing that they're separate and flawed, therefore not deserving of a better life. Someone has to choose differently. Someone has to say, you know what? If I were raising a child and had a 6 or 8-year-old with me, how would I treat them? Not in a way that deserves judgment and karma. I would bring them into a different life, and that's what you have to do for yourself. But you can't do it just for you and against the bad guys. You have to also be willing to see the innocence in others, which isn't what they're showing you. So then how do you do that? Just pretend and denial? Hi, just despite how messed up you're in war, famines, and all kinds of things that go on in this world, but aggressive, hurtful politicians and the money people that are behind wars, it gets really twisted. I'm not saying to you, you should go, isn't it nice that none of this is really happening? You know, like just well stoned, you know? That's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is to be able to say, despite what they're doing, that's not the real them, because it isn't the real them. I can guarantee you that. Despite what this person did, despite what this person did to me or us or the world, that's not who they really are. See, and Jesus, as the Christ, had that ability to know. To Pilate, don't you realize I have the power to crucify you? Well, that's your abusers. Don't you realize I have the power? I can abuse you today if I want. Or your partners. I have the money. Don't you realize if you try to divorce me, I'm taking the money and you're not getting anything. All the threat from people. And that's Pilate. Don't you realize, and what did Jesus say? You don't have any power except that which I give you from within my higher self. What a cool reaction. I don't remember saying that when I was abused as a kid. Actually, technically, you don't have any power, Dad, to throw me in my room again on restriction or whatever I was on, you know? Actually, you know, could you imagine saying that to your parents? I just had a flash of what that would have looked like. Well, Dad, technically, you have no power except that which I give you. Anyway, so the world doesn't believe that, but you have to know that. You know, you're still going to deal with stuff, and you get fired from a job. And, you know, and there's this part that's like, you got to be kidding me. Feel it, cry, and feel hurt for a moment. But there's a point where you start to emerge from the hurt, the victim, up a step, from the human victim here into this next place, which is the heart. Not yet God, but in the heart, where you start to change your wording, your framing. Despite them firing me and seemingly having the right to do so, there's another way of looking at this. God, I don't know what really is behind this, but you can show me. You guide me. What direction do you have for me? What new life? Despite losing a loved one, feel the pain. Feel what you need to feel. But there's a point where you emerge from the muck and come to this place and say, there's another level of this. I remember, I think it was my first job. And my first job, some friends worked construction. And I went to help them, and I wanted a job too because I was a kid and wanted a job, money. So I went and had this job, and after a week or two, I got my first paycheck. And I was so excited, man. I got in the car and I got pulled over and got a ticket for roughly the amount for my 2 weeks of work. Because I was so excited. And the cop's going, I'm still trying to figure out how you reached this speed within 1 block. You know, and I'm not kidding. I was starting to cry, you know, not for his amusement. He went to write me up. But inside, I was just like, this can't be happening. I was happy, and I just 2 weeks and work and money, and it's gone. Was that the cop's fault? You know, was he going, that's Michael? No. Was it the work sites? Was it traffic laws? Somewhere, and it wasn't me just speeding. It was me, some level of me said, you don't deserve good. And you just received good, and you don't deserve it. You see? I told this story once years ago, but I remember my dad ended up, you know, he was a person who had a lot of money at times. And it's interesting, his father was from the Depression and all that, so they were different. They really, you know, his dad didn't like him very much. But I remember when my grandfather was dying, and my dad was still trying to like get him to like him, you know, and he wished he would, but he didn't. He didn't like him. Because my dad came into money, and my grandfather, you know, lived the Depression. He never had that. So he resented the easy way that my dad prospered. So my grandfather's passing away, and he's, you know, in and out of, you know, that state. And he says to my dad, take those off. My dad had, you know, the watch and the gold, you know, the rings and the diamonds. Take those off, take those off. This is in his dying breath. Take those off. My dad goes, what are you talking about? He goes, you don't deserve those. This is his dying words, you know, and I don't think he ever even got over that, but he had plenty to not get over. You know, he had other issues too, but that really hit him. But that statement isn't my grandfather to my dad. You understand? That was my dad to himself, mirrored through his father. So he can hate his dad for saying it. He can pretend he doesn't hold it against his dad for saying it. But the belief of it is painful, whether it's from his dad, his son, his uncles, his aunts, his friends, his non-friends. People say and do wicked things, but they're a mirror. When we decide who we really are, we become holy and less susceptible to that stuff. There's a great exception to the rule. Well, Michael, if that's true, then why was Jesus so beat up and persecuted? Jesus chose to allow that. Why? If Michael's telling the truth that the world is a mirror, and if you're holy, you'll see holiness only. Now, there's a word. You'll see holiness only. You'll experience holiness only. There's a difference. But watch. Jesus was holy, and I said, if you're holy, you'll only see holiness. Jesus never chose to see anything but holiness, even in the people that beat him up. Forgive them, they know not what they do. He was right on the, you know, the front lines, working the forgiveness each second. It's not like you go, well, I'm holy, so nothing goes on. Well, if he just allowed his holiness only, first of all, he wouldn't have been visible. Second of all, he would have said, you people are so messed up, I can't relate to you. Instead, he got in a body, went through the body stuff and said, you've got to be kidding me. Is this what you guys do? Like, and then he told you, keep bouncing back. So Jesus, the Christ concept, the process isn't like this. It's like this, back. That's what it's like to live the Christ life. It's not all just, I just walk around, you know, floating on the Colgate invisible shield. You have to be old enough to know what that means. Okay, so if you're under 90, like, you know, if you're over, 90, you'll understand this, but if you're under 90, then you won't. You have to be old like me. But in this commercial, if you brush with Colgate, it's as though you float on an invisible shield through life, you know, and you're just always, chiclets-looking teeth and everything's bright and white. So you're protected automatically because you brushed right. So Jesus floating on the Colgate invisible shield, meaning like he's just completely immune to anything in the world. He's not immune to things happening. He's immune because he chose not to buy into it as actually having power or being real for that matter. So that's not, that's a consciousness. See, that's not just like an extraordinary gift that some people have. It's a consciousness we have to choose. So to choose that consciousness, you have to own what I said earlier. Needs courage and a very psychological and spiritual level of maturity. Courage, responsibility, and maturity. And that is to say, what I think is happening is so-and-so is hurting me in some way. But they are reflecting my doubts. So let's say I have an idea to get a new career. Family members are saying, are you kidding? You know, that doesn't pay well. All the stuff they can say. Yes, you're right. I wish they would be more supportive and you could go sit with a counselor and you could have them say it to you. Well, I'm sorry, you know, your family's not being supportive. That's all external. And you deserve to be supported in that. Like, gosh, you deserve some, you know, support. And yes, that's true. But that's still fixing it on this level. That's like saying, I'm emotionally in pain, so if I drink, I don't feel it, as though that's a cure. And it isn't. You're temporary. When you get people to give you the support you think you want, it's still temporary. What you really want to get to is that this isn't phasing you. This doesn't have the power you thought it did. So it takes something else to say, wow. You go home, you don't have to say it to the world. You don't have to tell persecutors, hey, listen, I know you're being persecuting and you're being rude and hurtful right now, physically, emotionally, etc. But I hired you. You don't have to do that with them. Just deal with it at the level it's at. Say no, set some boundaries, go home and sit with it and say, now, what was really happening there? What was it bringing up? Well, I just don't understand why they couldn't have been nicer. There you are in your bathtub, you know, and your little candles, sitting on the lotus flowers that are floating in the tub, and, you know, lotus candles, you know, and in the background, you know. You can just sit there and go, you know, I'm trying to bliss out, but it ain't going to happen because this happened today. Your job is not to make yourself feel worse and say it was your fault. It's to say, this has been a pattern, hasn't it? Yes, this has happened before. Who's the common denominator? I am. Now, what if I had a certain thing happen in me that could have prevented any of this? What might it have been? Well, I should have been louder and stronger. No, that's external. If you could have had a state of consciousness that would have made you nowhere in this ballpark of this kind of thing happening, what would it have been? Peace. If I were in a total state of peace, or it might be joy, or it might be love, or self-worth, or whatever, divinity, this would not have happened. And if it did happen, I wouldn't have cared. Because you get to a place of complete immunity, psychological, physical immunity. Jesus wasn't here to show us that if you're holy, unholy things wouldn't happen. They did happen to him. But he was choosing to be an extreme example, to say, I'm so holy, this stuff doesn't get to me. Yeah, Jesus, but we're not quite there. So he answers that too. Oh, you mean that? Unholy. Unholy people do come into your life. So let me show you. If you're holy, you'll attract holiness. And he did. How do we know that? Because people loved him and thanked him. So goodness does attract goodness. But when it attracts not so nice, what do you do? And he showed you that one too, which is, forgive them, they know not what they do. It still happened. Can you imagine being beat to that level? He spent 9 hours on a crucifix. Like 9 minutes would have been more than most of us could handle. 9 seconds. I mean, the first penetration of a nail. Excuse me. Hello, what are you doing? You know, most of us wouldn't allow that at all. Bam, 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 bam. Bam, 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 bam. Feet, bam, 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 bam. All this beating and hurting. And imagine the people that have done things to you. For you and I, just like Jesus, to be able to say, and no matter what you do to me, it's not the real you. I refuse to lose sight of the real you. Like, that's incredible. But he didn't say, as many of us assumed, if you can pull this off and never judge anyone, you will achieve Christ consciousness, which you will. It's true, you will. You will achieve Christ consciousness once you're like Jesus and no judgments. But you could be sitting in the room going, had I known that, I would have worked harder at not judging. You still would have done it. What he's saying is, and when you do judge, forgive yourself. You're not going to be able to make it easily through your life, like me, Jesus, as an example, with perfect love. But I have a shortcut, the only shortcut, if there is one. And that is, I want to teach you to forgive yourself because you're going to judge. I've said this many times, but the 10 Commandments were not given to where people were not, that people were going to be able to pull it off. Don't break the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments were showing you just generally, here's a lifestyle, laws that you should try to live in. But it still involved forgive yourself. So whether they're the laws, commandments of Buddha, Moses, or the way of Christ consciousness, stop thinking that it's this much you have to live up to. You don't have to get from human to divine. You only are asked to go from human to your heart where you forgive yourself, sometimes for not acting divine. When you forgive yourself, you know what you're acting like? Divine. You see? I'm doing such ridiculous things. I wish I could be more divine. You don't have to, and you can't get from human to divine. We're blessed, man. We're blessed. All we have to do is go from human to forgiveness. And when you forgive, you're like God, then you're divine. That's the only bridge from the human to the divine, forgiveness. And it'll start with forgiving, all those blankety blanks that have harmed you. But later on, we start to realize, and there's forgiving myself. Bless you. I held it against myself that I was separate, and I can see how it manifests. I try to stimulate with drugs, alcohol, people, food, stimulate so that I feel a little less down for having separated. That's what we do. Or you try to sedate. I feel so terrible, something's got to drug me and bring me down into a, lull kind of state. Is that making sense? So everybody and everything in your life is to stimulate and sedate, one or the other, or both sometimes. All as a reaction so that I don't deal with what's really happening. Even having people attack us. Again, I'm not saying you consciously ask for that. We unconsciously open ourselves up to it. And then people act it out. Forgive them if you can, work on that, forgive them, but also forgive yourself. And you start to see, I'm forgiving myself. And you'll start off, you'll be tempted to go, okay, I forgive myself for creating the jerk, but then it's still about them. You start to realize, I'm going to forgive myself for this pattern, for this belief. You go from the one to the patterns, then the beliefs. Now I'm really getting to the core of stuff here. I can see where several people in my life really didn't treat me like I mattered, but on some level, I determined I don't matter. How could I matter if I'm separate from God? I can't be that valuable. So, there's this frequency that just emanates out there. And there are people out there just in pain, and they're thinking someone has to hurt me or I have to hurt someone. That's stimulate, hurt others, or pain, the crash. And everybody's going to crash or attack. It's survival of the fittest. And we have to get back to a place of, this is not the world that God created. This is not. It's absolutely not even close. It's not at all the world God created. And you can go to the most pleasant things in your life. Don't ever just go, well, I have some nice things. Michael, you're talking about the negatives. I do have some nice things. You don't even perceive those correctly because you think, well, because I deserve them. I worked several years. If you think your work is how you deserved retirement, if you think being a faithful child to your parents to get their will is why you deserve it, you're still thinking it's you that made you valuable. It's your divinity. Don't think that my 50 years at that job is why I get the gold watch. If you think, not only do we put the frequency out there for negative karma, We actually try to take the credit for the positives. You're not the one that makes yourself valuable. You're not the one who deserves that great relationship. Your divinity. So when you get tempted to say, well, I'm in good shape, but that's because I work out a lot and I'm really highly disciplined, you're still talking about you. Instead, it could be, oh, pride cometh before a fall. If I say I, because I'm so healthy, because I eat right, because I have good genetics, it's I. Instead, I don't know. All I know is that I just do my best to be the most loving person. And naturally, that's going to attract good karma. But the gifts that you have in this world, retirement and wealth and good health or whatever, credit it towards you and it becomes immediately dead. Even if it still lasts for another year or lifetime, it becomes dead. It's already been signed up to go because you put yourself as the source of it. God. You see? God. What inspires me to go to the gym? Well, I'm just really this and I and genetics and see it, you're setting yourself up. When I start to realize I go where I go and eat a healthy meal, or I go and work out, or I choose healthy partnerships, or whatever it is. Why? Because of who I really am. It's not that what I do achieves this, it's who I really am. And I say really am, so you don't confuse who I really am psychologically, personally. I'm talking about our divinity. The reason that the things in this world have to fall away, because economy as humans know it isn't the one God knows. You can't fix problems with the same mind that created them, right? So I have to have a mind change. I have to have a mind adjustment. I thought I needed to fix racism and sexism and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. You can't fix it with the mind that reacts to it to fix it. If that were possible, we wouldn't have the politics we have. It's all reaction oriented. What's got to happen is each person has to say, let me see your will, not mine. Show me how to see through your eyes. If we do that, you can't see colors and genders and so on. Now, some of you are going to go, great, that would be beautiful, because then we wouldn't see colors and then, oh, wait, he said genders. Well, what if I still want to hook up and, now you're going to be inconvenienced because, well, Michael, I don't want the color thing to be an issue, but I still want some gender. I don't want to be like, I don't know what you are. Would you like to get together and be ambiguous? I don't quite get that, Michael. See, when you're in the right consciousness, that won't matter. So it's not like I'm trying to suggest that you jump to a place of celibacy and so on and so on. It's judgment. We put judgments on all these things. And it's interesting to me, I'm going to start to close here, because the judgments we put, and I'm talking about, we have judgments on health. There's what we think is good health and bad health. There's what we think is good economy, bad economy. Good sexuality, bad sexuality. Topics of this world. And they're all still coming from my opinions. Me, the fallen, broken person with opinions. So we start to look at this and say, God, there must be another way of seeing all these things. And then the Holy Spirit of God starts coming in because you've invited it in. It starts coming in and unplugging certain opinions and neurons and belief systems in your mind and in your heart. And it starts wiring new ones like that doesn't matter and that's okay and be at peace and so on and so on. And, when, for example, people that were spiritual people, advanced, they're called mystics. But mystics had this thing about no sexuality. And why was that? Well, because it's bad. Many of them thought it's naughty, but it wasn't really that. So here's another kind of a trip to throw on you here for a second. But the reason they perceived sexuality as bad, the reason religions persecuted women so often, it was 90-something% females being persecuted, is because they were attractive to the ones that were persecuting them. but the ones persecuting them were supposed to be perfect. You know what I mean? By religious standards. And as soon as any one of those individuals went, oh, look at that, they caught themselves and went, oh my God, what happened? They felt ashamed. And then they had to assign the shame onto them, and as long as we kill them, we're okay. Look at the logic. But that logic's not much better to ancient cultures that used to slaughter animals. The sins of mine for this year are gone because I killed a calf. Like, what a weird, twisted world. Could you imagine any ascended being going, that sounds attractive, I'm going to go and incarnate? There will come a day when ascended masters and angels won't even realize there's a dimensional shift or difference between them and us when we start to act like them without the judgments. But the way we are, there is a difference between angelic dimension and human because they're in this state of openness and we're like, oh, we must kill an animal to be sinless. How could that possibly take away your sinful belief systems? I mean, it can't work. There's no common sense to it. Tell that to a 5-year-old. They'd be like, what? And yet your religious superiors convinced people of that. So the mystics were thinking it's naughty, but here's why. This is just one example. Like I said, it could be sexuality, it could be health, it could be economic. But as soon as you engage in a body, it's not the sex that's naughty. It's as soon as you engage in a body sexually, you actually start to assume it means you're a body. You get that? If you're engaging with the body, you must be a body. So it isn't that sexuality is bad and it's corrupting. And they say that. Dude, go and read the old books. It's corrupting. It's naughty. It destroys your soul. Look at the televangelists, and the certain religious people, at the podiums. Oh, and you're going to hell, the sinful of the flesh. When they start to say the sins of the flesh, it means I'm in the mood and I don't know what to do about it. That's what it means. All they're saying is, God, help me. But deep down, they're partly right in a good, mature way, which means I don't know how to engage at that level without becoming that level. And there's a cure. Don't drop to that level. You mean by not having sex? No. By holding something different when you go into that experience. By choosing to remember God and share at that level. And then you have the pagans doing the opposite. Oh, we totally believe in the flesh and whatever. Partly as a reaction to the other. It's a great passive-aggressive statement. You guys are against it? We're all for it. Just to get back at them, of course. There's a little bit of that. But they too went off, and it's called misdirected, okay? The ones that are saying it's naughty, they're partly right. But not because of the way they think. It's not the bodies that are naughty. It's just simply, I started identifying with a physical body, therefore I lost my spirit. That's true. That's why they say it corrupts you. It just means it's a temptation to distract you. That's all they meant, but they didn't understand that. So the pagans are engaging, but here's what they're really saying. If we're engaging with the body, that's like engaging with the earth. If we're engaging with the body and the earth, it's like I'm making love to the universal feminine. If I'm a man, I'm making love to the universal feminine. Even though it's bodies, as long as you don't only think, see, feel bodies, something magical is happening. I'm making love to the universal woman through you. If you're the woman, you're saying, and I am the universal woman. So he's making love to the universal woman. She's making love as the universal woman. And that's just a different way of looking at it. It's a different level of consciousness. And I know it's going to seem like, how do I remember that when I'm in the middle of, woohoo! You're like dancing the dance of pleasure, and you're like, oh, hold it a minute, universal mother, whatever, I understand. But it only takes a fraction of a second to say, be with me. And you think, because of our judgments of separation, I probably can't do that. Be with me, really? God wants to see this? because we have opinions. God isn't going to see you doing it. God's going to feel the consciousness you're asking for to be present in that experience, which is very colorful. It's very beautiful. You know, it's just, anyway. It's to just have that level of consciousness. And more of us are awakening to that willingness, to that level of consciousness. And, you know, you might seem like it's not there enough. I wish more people, I know, it's a challenge. But we are moving into a world where that's going to be the given. That's going to be the common thing. The challenging thing is, previous generations that were asleep, they didn't even realize this was an option. So they were blissfully ignorant. The future generations are going to know nothing but this that I'm describing. Goodness, love, oneness, etc. Is that cool? But you know where we are? Yes. Right here in the middle. You know what the most difficult one is? This one. Blissfully ignorant, blissfully blissful. The one here that's trying to tell these people about that experience, that's the challenge. So you're going to seem like the oddball in your circles or at work or in your family because you have a different a message than they're used to hearing. Later, it's going to be like, they're going to be like looking back at you going, duh, yeah, obviously. You're like, hey, excuse me. You don't know the people I was trying to convince, about this, So you light workers in the middle here doing this work, you're being a bridge, which is the will of the Divine Mother, and you're being a bridge between these two realities. Only one of them is true, but we still have to respect the others. They're not there yet. Don't preach it to them. Don't slam them with it. Don't judge them for it. Simply keep being the difference you want to see in the world. These people will only reach that place by coming through you. No one reaches the Father but through me means everyone has to be introduced to unconditional love and Christ consciousness before they can reach that highest level. And all I can do is my part in that. Preaching to you about it means it's a religion, and it means I don't get it. And because I don't get it, I have to preach it louder and louder because that's me talking to myself, you see. But when I get it, I'm being it. I'm being present with it. Now people can see and feel there's something different about this. And that's what the Pharisees even said about Jesus. Some of them said, he's repeating some of the same things we've known in the laws. And some of the others said, yeah, but listen, it's like he actually gets it. He's actually that consciousness. He's not talking it. There's something alive in him when he's sharing these things. He's not repeating it. He's not reciting it. It's a living flow, a living river flowing from him. Please take a few centering breaths. Soaking in the frequencies, the vibes in the room, things shared, soak it all in. Whatever made sense, whatever meant something to you, soak it in. It's not a lecture you heard, it's you opening up to something new in yourself. So really own that. Anything that didn't click or make sense, just let it go. Just exhale it away. But anything that did click, wow, I am at this level of understanding now. It's astonishing. And stuff will still happen, but I'm learning to forgive it and let it go more quickly. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. One of the things requested, that word spirit or spirits. Try to be aware that you are a spiritual being, but also look around, feel inside your mind, not outside with your eyes, but tune into the room and the people online all around the world, that there are this endless number of spiritual beings. And those spiritual beings are not sitting here listening with their head. Just like the most beautiful poster of a being of light. Why do we look at the poster and go, oh, look how beautiful? Imagine that's you, a being of light. Radiant, shining, chakras, aura, you're glowing. And instead of imagining that that beautiful being that you are needs to deal with earthly stuff that shoots you out of your spiritual presence into a dense body, remember, that's not our homework. Our homework is to remember our spirit while we're in a body. How can I be this radiant being of light and still eat foods that I once judged or just dense foods? How can I be this being and still deal with job loss occasionally or finding a new job? How does this spirit being engage in partnerships, friendships, intimacy, decision making? One of you asked about show up. Showing up does not mean leave your spirit behind and get in, just only be your human self. How do I bring my spirit into my everyday? Every thought, word, deed, every decision. So spend the next half minute or so just in that state. I'm a spiritual being having a temporary human experience. I'm not a human being having temporary spiritual experiences. I'm a spiritual being having human experiences, and I am still here. I am spirit. I am still here while in my body. And how do I do it differently? Just another minute imagining day-to-day activities. How do you engage differently? You still go to work, but how are you different? A spiritual being nicely integrated into a human body. How does it change the way you eat, the way you drive your car? How does it change the way you see war? How does it change the way you see loss? Someone passed away, for example. If you're a spirit being, how does it change the way you do that? And if you've imagined that even just a little, imagine the effects that can have on the people around you. Is there even one person whose day is lit up by your presence at work now, just by that shift in you? Is one person changed by the way you are when you're intimate? The way you handle foods and dinners? If you're in a room of people that are afraid of something going on in the world, how are they affected by you? See how they're affected, and not just humanly, hear and feel their gratitude from soul to soul. They don't have to just worship Jesus. Let the Christ that was born in Jesus be born in you as well. Bring the presence to them. Be a good example of Christ. The term Christian means to be Christ-like, not to worship one person. And Jesus himself knows this and agrees with it. I'm leaving you, but I'm leaving you with a comforter. That's the Holy Spirit to birth the Christ in you. It doesn't negate the love and respect and honor we give to Jesus. We use him as a guide. Help us, guide us, show us. He represents that doorway that he said he represented. But I have to start living this in my own life. Loving, forgiving, caring, of service. And close with just feeling any way you can the gratitude of God in the highest heaven for what you just visualized. Your goodness, the effect you had on others, and their gratitude. Imagine that you have the most loving Father, Mother, Creator being, God, appreciating that you helped to bring someone home. And slowly reintegrate into the room. Take your time. How's everyone feeling? In a word or two, just in a word or two. The talk and the meditation in a word or two. Calm, peace, softened,
Deeply touched.
divine, deeply touched. Relief, good. Om. Whole. Wow. We've experienced lots of things. We've had times in our life where we didn't feel whole. We didn't feel soft. We didn't feel at peace. Yeah. You're not wrong for having had those experiences. And they deserve your love. They already have God's love and compassion, but they deserve our own love and compassion. I think that's done. You know, it's like you can say to yourself, yeah, it's time for something different. You can say it's time for something different here in the room today, or watching online, or whenever you're watching it. It's another thing to live that. It's one thing to say, you know what, I totally get this love and self-worth thing. I get it. So now, from now on, self-worth. As soon as you deal with your relationship this afternoon or next week or next year, you know, there you are back to that decision making. And it's so easy to cave and go back to the old patterns. We're going to, in a moment, take up our collection. Just be as generous as you can be. We appreciate that. Then we'll do our closing prayer. While you're gathering the collection, let me share a few announcements. First of all, by the way, I mentioned it last week. My book I wrote on love and forgiveness, it's been sold out. Even though I mentioned it last week, it's been sold out for, I think, like a half a year. So it's not even been available for a while because, thank goodness, it was nice. It's sold out. But 2 days ago, they're back. So we have them in the bookstore, but they're back also available online. If you order it online and it says unavailable, they're mistaken because it is available again. So either, just call us and we'll get it, or let them know that it is available again. But that book, it's a real great one to study a little bit more on the concept of love and forgiveness. We have a bunch of new gift items on the table over there. They're not the same as last week's. Understand that those things all sold. There's another batch of new things that came in. So check those out if you're interested. Some unique items for that matter. This afternoon from 1 to 4, we have the Sedona Psychic Fair. And it's Psychic Sunday. We have that once a month. And we get, just some of the best readers in the region, even some coming from Tucson and Phoenix. We're very selective. We like the best of everything that we do here. So we have that available 1 to 4. If you haven't already scheduled, you can still do so in the foyer after service. But also, don't give up if they're booked up, for example. Call and get scheduled anyway. Get guidance in your life when you need it. Don't give up on those things. And if you're watching on social media, we appreciate your dedication, or by finding us spontaneously. So we appreciate that, and know that we have YouTube playlists, all kinds. You can see hundreds of talks on YouTube, but also we do Facebook Live and other platforms we use, okay? We're going to do our prosperity prayer. Just hold your love offering to your heart and really, really believe. You're giving from a place that you can afford to give from, even if you don't have $1. Believe that you're coming from a place you can afford, and at least a blessing in the basket, because you want to give so that you can receive. Even if you don't believe yet you can afford a tangible thing like $1 or $1 million. It's okay. You are made in the image of God. You are prosperous. Believe that, and then the time will come where you see more plenty externally. Together, please. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, and so it is. Thank you. Can anyone share what they learned or heard that made the most impact on you, or that could change your life, or the people around you for that matter? What did you hear that made the most sense? Yes?
When there's a chance that we don't have to be our beliefs. We can be divine.
Yeah. Yeah, the concept of letting go of your opinions of yourself and allowing innocence or the divinity to come through again. Yes?
However minute of the day, you've got to be conscious of what you're thinking.
How every minute of the day, do your best to show up. Be conscious of what you're thinking, right? And remember, though, you're already thinking when you woke up, I'm separate and deserving of karma for my choice to be separate. That's already there. Please don't think that if you would like to pretend it's not there, that makes it not there. You are running on that default program that we're separate and deserving of punishment. That is in us. You have to therefore every morning choose, that's not true. What's true is that I am as God created me. Because the other's running on automatic pilot as a default program from the ego. Yes, dear?
The power of living from heaven to earth, like in
Yeah. The concept of the power of living God down into every part of our being. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing. God, be with me, right? In everything. Not be with me, but not at work. Well, God, you probably don't want to hang out. I'm working on an assembly line. I don't know if they have those still, but, I'm working on an assembly line, and, that'll bore God. There are some things that we just assume God might not want to be there because we're thinking linearly. Bring God into everything you do, everywhere you go, with everyone. In an argument, God, be with me, as you're raging. But it'll change if you just get the foot in the door. It's kind of funny, but I don't care if you're having colonic therapy. Well, God, this is going to get this is going to be a bit weird here. Bring it. Too much info, but I remember going and having a couple colonic therapy things and sessions. And the lady was just cracking up. She said, Michael, you're the only person I have. You come in, and they give you, you're under a sheet or blanket or whatever. But she said, most people, they're doing this or that, they're dealing with the colonic, they're thinking that, they're doing all kinds of things. She goes, I come in, you're always cross-legged and meditating. Great image, right? But she's like, Michael's all like, and I mean, I'd be meditating or what, but it's bring God into everything. Why even go for a colonic if you're trying to edge God out of the moment. Because now you have something else to get cleansed out, which is your belief that God shouldn't be blessing your colon. So release the old, bring in the new. Release the old with God, bring in the new with God. Don't just take nutrients, external things to fix you. Say, God, be in these. Don't just eat food. Ask God to be in your food. And be the body that digests the food. Into everything, the most mundane. I don't care if it's dentistry, colonic therapy, sex, anything, everything. You could be in the middle of sports. You know, a pitcher who won the World Series. It was so impressive to me back in the 70s. And he just blew everybody away because he came out of nowhere and yet won the World Series, and that he was such a different kind of character. And they said, we understand that you have strong spiritual beliefs. Are you telling God, is it real? Like, that's how you strike people out? He said, no. I don't say, God, give me a strike against this batter. He says, I say, you be with me with every pitch, and God decides. That's trippy. See, I want a strike. But this guy wins the World Series by saying, not attached. I mean, that's just amazing. Amazing. Bless him wherever that person is. Did you have your hand up? Yes.
Yeah, just piggybacking off of that, a consistent message that I keep hearing the last couple of weeks is our ability to be that bridge. When we get it, we can offer that as a gift to other people in every moment.
Yeah. The ability to be that bridge. She really got that, and that's being reinforced. Please know, there are going to be days where you're like a bridge between two of your children, or between your parents and your siblings, or between two different groups of people. And someone is going to crucify you for it. Oh, so you're on their side. You mean because I said I'm trying to hear what they're saying? See? Even being a bridge. Why? Because when you reach out to this side and this side, look at the posture. You're a bridge, but you're also crucified. But stay unattached to that and judge those, do not judge those who are judging you for it. Judge not. Here I am. And is that easy? No. Especially when you're trying to be so loving, benevolent, and then you get crucified for that. But that's just another temptation for you to say, I shouldn't be so loving. You see? Yeah. You see that? Behind you, someone else had their hand up. Yes?
Identify with your divine.
Say it again.
Identify with your divine.
Identifying with your divinity. And don't forget, don't do the leaving here, identifying with your divinity, and other people not. Say, you have to do that for yourself, but you can only achieve seeing your own divinity in proportion to how much you're willing to see the same divinity in others. Yeah. How was the topic? Or topics? Topics. Good. Beautiful. Did you understand the part I was saying about bodies and sexuality and all that? And good. See, it isn't the act. It's I now slip into identifying with the body. That's the problem. And the same with money. You're all into prosperity thinking, but not having money in the bank makes you identify with it, and it's hard to think abundance when you see zeros. That's the trip of this body, this world. Please stand for a closing. I greatly appreciate, as always, everyone's presence and online too. We have such a great group of people. And you're here sometimes, most of you are here regularly. You don't realize the number of people that also are here, but locally, they might not come in today, miss a day. They're watching and they're part of this spiritual family that is God. Then there's people all around the world. There's people that will accidentally come upon it 6 years from now and watch it online. They're all part of this. And there's no this, meaning this building. This is just the children of God remembering. This is just us all choosing this particular building, route, video, to get to that place. But there's no ism that any of us know of. There's no clique, as it were. This is just guided by God. I feel connected. I feel alive. There's answers coming from God through this person or that person, this teacher, that teacher, or yourself. But definitely share this with people. Go to places that feel like it's your spiritual family, your tribe, as it were, not just because they enable your ego or stroke your ego, but you can just feel there's something extra powerful in what's being shared and taught there. So we're healed even when we think of this place. The presence of God. I know the presence of Christ in all people that think of me. Let them be aware, something download. As soon as they think of me as a person, any of us, we're saying me, meaning you, any of us, we're commanding that the power of God do something unique. When they think of me, my image, my name, I give permission for something Christy to download in them. When someone speaks of me, the Christ starts downloading into that person, whether they are conscious of it or not. If they're going to say my name, I have the right to activate something in them that is goodness. To my right, my left is the Christ. Before me, behind me, the Christ. Inside, outside, high and low. The Christ in my mind, the Christ in my emotions, the Christ in my dedications, the Christ in my friendships, the Christ in money, the Christ in my workplace, my sexuality, my health, my fitness. Christ in all things that I am, because I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. The light of God surrounds us. We are the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. We are the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. We are the presence of God. Wherever we go, God is, I am, we are, and so it is. God bless you all. Thank you.